200 people got wounded in the war and were treated in Israeli hospitals, the great majority suffering minor injuries. But besides them, there are more than 1,000 wounded in tougher conditions. Several hundreds of them are now facing a long, challenging, complex process of recovery and rehabilitation. Some of them will never get back the lives that they had before. So when we're talking about victims of October 7th, we should also take them into consideration. And we want to turn now live to Dr. Debra Gershov West, the Director of Emergency Department at the Samson Assuta Ashdod University Hospital. Dr. Gershov West, thank you very much for joining us. Well, let's start with the basics because, again, we're using those terms so frequently nowadays. But when we say moderate or severe injuries, what are we talking about exactly?
Often when we're talking about moderate injuries, we're talking about loss of limb. A loss of a leg or loss of an arm is considered a moderate injury. Severe injuries are ones that are immediately life-threatening. So, for example, they could be injuries to the lungs, to the heart, to the internal organs, or head trauma. So when we're talking about there's 1,000 that are injured and several hundred of them are seriously injured, we're not including all of the people who basically lost limbs. And there are many, many of them.
And again, I wouldn't say using those terms casually. Nothing is casual those days. But I don't think that we realize how many people lost the life they had. Period. And obviously, it varies from one to another. But what does the rehabilitation process looks like? Yeah.
Let me tell you what the rehabilitation hospital looks like. It looks like the First World War. It looks like a First World War battlefield. It's scores of young, 18, 19, 20, 30-year-old people with a missing limb, a missing leg, usually often what's called disarticulation, which is it's missing already at the level of the hip, missing arms with head injuries. It looks like there's been a battle in the trenches in the First World War. And when we talk about rehabilitation, let's set aside for the moment the emotional rehabilitation, but just the physical rehabilitation. I mean, this is their lives will never ever be the same. They're going to need all of the victims are going to need prolonged rehabilitation. They're going to need to learn how to walk again with a prosthetic limb, and a prosthetic limb from a below knee amputation or an above knee amputation is a very, very different scenario. As well as I said, there's upper limb injuries, there's head injuries where people have to learn how to talk again, how to walk again. And aside from that is the emotional trauma, not only of the survivors, but of the survivor guilt of every person who survived is carrying with them their friends, their family members, their members of their security forces, whether it's the police force or the army, that died alongside them. They even look at themselves as the lucky ones.
Doctor, I do want to ask you more on this personal note, the shock, the intensity, the immediate trauma, slowly, painfully fading. Share with us what it's been like in the past week at the hospital. It seems that only now, perhaps, both doctors and patients begin to digest and process what happened.
Honestly, not.
Not even.
It's not fading. No, it's not fading. It's not getting better. If anything, it's intensified. It's intensified by the shock and horror and disbelief that we all feel with what's going on in the world, with the fact that people are denying it, that people are saying that we're making it up, that we're exaggerating, that people are ignoring the 239 victims who are hostages, including little children who are still being held by the Hamas. The people are calling us instigators of genocide, are accusing us of wanting to kill people in hospitals. Now, I've been working, actively with Israeli and Palestinian organisations to treat patients in trauma and in other scenarios, and treating and teaching around the world. This is the fact that we are being accused as a nation, and also that as a physician, it's personal. I'm taking it personally. You can't recover if you're not allowed to recover, if you're constantly being beaten down, and if we're constantly getting wounded patients, we're getting victims all the time of horrific injuries, of anti-tank missiles that it's almost impossible to recover from, of rockets, of gunshot wounds, and they just keep pouring in. And every day there's more and more wounded and more dead. So to say that we're recovering, no, we are responding, we are collecting ourselves, we are acting out. Our resilience is not that we're beginning to recover or sleep at night. Our resilience is that we are taking our lives into our own hands. We are responding. We are trying to teach. We're trying to treat. We're trying to do the best that we can.
You can't recover when you're not allowed to recover. That will continue to resonate. Doctor, before we thank you and let you go to the rest of your challenging day, our rehabilitation department able to handle this flood of patients?
Yes, I think they are. There's rehabilitation departments around the country. Basically, what's happening is that the patients have been transferred all around the country, which presents another challenge.
Yes. We seem to have some connectivity issues, or we're struggling to hear you properly. Dr. Debra Gershov West, Director of the Emergency Department at the Samson, Assuta, Ashdod University Hospital, thank you for your work in those past 5 weeks, and thank you for this conversation.